Hi, this is Jeff and this is Photoshop HDR. Um, for those that don't know, HDR stands for High Dynamic Range. That's a series of photographs that are pulling in data from multiple sources. And what do I mean by that? Well, let's go over here to my folder, actually, that's titled HDR1. And if we flip through these photos, and here, let me make this a little bit bigger so you can see it actually. If we flip through these photos, we'll notice that each of them has been taken at a different exposure. So each of them has a varying level of data and detail. But what would we get if we took all of the data from all of these and merged it together so that we had all the data, that we were compiling the data from all the photos, so we had the detail from each and every one of them? Well, that would be a high dynamic range photo. So let's go do that and see actually how it comes out. So how would we get started creating a HDR image from several smaller images? Well, let's go over here and make sure we select Photoshop, and then we're going to File, we'll come down to Automate, and then from there we're going to go to Merge to HDR Pro. From here, in this Merge to HDR Pro dialog, we're going to select Browse, and we're going to make sure that we have our folder selected, which we do, and we're going to select each of our photos actually. I'm actually just going to do shift click to select these, but you could also do shift and the arrow keys. I'm going to make sure I've got all 5 of them. I do. Let's hit OK. This is going to take a second for the photos to import, but as they're importing, I want to point out that each one of them is ending up on its own layer in Photoshop. And once Photoshop is done importing them, we will get a special dialog that only works for doing HDR photos. So this is a special dialog that we only get via coming in through this tool. If you notice on the left-hand side, at the lower left, we actually have 5 different photos now, each at its own exposure value. So how do we go about getting all the data that's represented in each of those 5 exposures to maximize in the picture up above, in the preview? Well, the very first thing I'm going to do is we're going to kind of work our way from bottom to top in the menu here. So I'm going to turn the shadow up, actually, on this photo. I'm going to turn the highlights up, and I'm going to turn the vibrance up. And one of the things that we're actually going to do that's counter to what we typically do in a lot of photos, if we really want to make them showy, is we're actually going to turn the saturation down. The reason for that is that I actually want to get some level of detail that we would not get if the saturation stayed cranked up. So I'm going to actually pull that back a little bit. All right, the next thing that we're going to do is that we're going to do the exposure just a little bit and just adjust that a bit. And we're actually going to turn the detail way up. And we can go really over the top on the detail here. You can kind of almost get a posterized view. But kind of one of the points of HDR is to see if you can actually get something kind of hyper real. And actually I'm going to take the exposure just back a little bit. And there we go. So now I'm starting to get that hyper real detail level that we're kind of after with HDR. Notice even some of the stuff in the background, in the painting of the room behind these images, behind these image elements, is starting to come out. Now, we're actually going to go up here to radius and adjust this just like we would need. And if we do it right, we can actually pick up a lot of detail, actually. One of the things I'm trying to do is make sure that we can still actually see the logo in the actual book here, the watermark for Illinois State University. And I'm actually going to do strength a little bit and mess with that. That's a little bit much. I'm just going to crank it back just a little bit so that people don't look quite as unreal. And that should be about right. I'm going to turn the gamma down just a bit. And we kind of have this new hyper-real photo. Let me go ahead and select OK to confirm this. Notice our photo as a single photo has a much higher level of detail than the photos, each of the individual photos that went into it. We're taking data from each of them in order to maximize what we can actually display in this one photo. So what would you use this for? Well, a lot of people use it for landscapes, or they use it for all sorts of different things where they want to keep a really different or high level of detail. But not lose micro details that are in shadow or in light colors that might be encountered in the environment. So this is one way you can compensate for that and use multiple photos to get that data back.